Really excited about the opportunity for us to share a conversation around what I think is perhaps one of the most hideous drugs that impacts our community. And we're very fortunate that Congressman Neil Dunn is here. Before I get into the nuts and bolts of it and introduce the congressman, he started a listening campaign about a year ago. He focused primarily looking at the opioid problem from a national perspective. And when he came here to the big bench, we talked about, obviously there is an opiate problem nationwide. And we suffer from that same element here in Leon County and Big Bend. But mostly, particularly our rural counties, suffer from the hideous impacts of methamphetamines in our community. And we shared that with the congressman, and as I spoke to him on the sidebar, he indicated that after that introduction, he is now fully committed and has talked on numerous occasions about the impacts of meth. And we thought it appropriate this morning that we try to bring all of us together and have a conversation around those impacts and how we can collectively, in a unified way, try to address this drug that's having the impacts that I've seen. I will digress a moment and talk about a circumstance in my life as I traveled through and around Leon County, Tallahassee. A young lady who grew up with my daughter, Caitlin. I won't give you her last name, but my wife and I were walking on the south side, and we saw this young lady sitting on the stoop. Y'all call it a step, but a porch. And we walked over to her. We saw her from a distance, and we said, that looks like Caitlin. And I said to my wife, that's not Caitlin. That child's much older looking than Caitlin would be. And my wife said, no, that's Caitlin. And so I said, well, I'll go see. And I walk up to her, and she smiles with what I had known to be a beautiful smile, but all her teeth were rotten. And I looked at her, and I immediately knew that she was a meth user. And I looked at her condition, her clothes being disheveled. She comes from I'd say a better than well-to-do family that lives in the Killarn area. And I just was completely shocked and taken aback by the ravages that her body had gone through, having been involved in the meth. We had a conversation with her, and one thing that struck me was her whole drive was different. Her whole drive was about getting that next fix. Her values and what made her happy was not the same Caitlin that we had grown up to see. And then I talked to our guys. I asked our investigators what was the most impactful drug in our community. And we had some different discussions about that. When I talked to TPD, we talked about marijuana being a huge impact in the urban core of Tallahassee. When I talked to our guys about it, without question, on the whole, the impact that meth is having in our community has been somewhat devastating. We have had not only the drug itself and its use, but it spawns from that use car break-ins, burglaries, fights, and in one case, I think, my guys can correct me about this, but I think we even had a murder case that spawned from the impact of meth within our community. So today we all gather here, and this isn't the Leon County Sheriff's Office. We're just the convener. This is about all of us having a conversation about, one, if we all agree that it has the insidious impacts that I believe it has, if we can coalesce around that agreement, and then try to figure out what is it that we do collectively and individually as agencies to try to address this real significant problem. I will stop there. You see the agenda. We've got a video after Congressman Neil Dunn speaks, and then Sergeant Bruner will come up and talk about what we see here in Leon. And with that, I am happy to introduce a man who really needs no introduction in the Big Bend, serving as our congressman in the 2nd Judicial Congressional District, a person who started his own bank, a person who's a medical doctor, and has been to about 12 different countries around the world, I should say, to include Vietnam. And with great deal of pleasure, let me introduce to you our congressman from the 2nd Congressional District, Neil Dunn.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. Thank you, and I won't take just a minute of your time to just say that the stories, like Caitlin's story that the Sheriff related, is true all over the district. And when I go, since we have the opioid roundtable here, I've been asking the business people all around the district, what's the biggest drug? What's the biggest problem drug to you in your business? And it's never opioids, it's meth, and it's just everything. And as it seems to be a much more addictive drug even than the opioids, and we know that it's 100% harmful. We know the effects it has on the brain, and I'm sure that was basically a spongiform encephalopathy, which means your brain is being eaten away. And I can't imagine why we have anybody on this drug, frankly, but clearly we do. It's very addictive, and I'm here to listen to your ideas, insights about what we can do to prevent people from getting on it. And I don't know how, if you can get them off it, I'd love to know how that can be done as well. I'm so proud to see so many experts around the table. I've never seen this many sheriffs in one place in my life. I'm thrilled to be with you. It's my honor and title.
Well, thank you. And since I think I met everybody around the room, but I think it's appropriate, Congressman, that we go around the room real quickly, at least those that are seated at the tables from the agencies. And why don't we start at the far right and come up?
John Wilson, CEO for This Village.
David Daniels, Operations Manager for Big Bend Community-Based Care.
Steve Outlaw, Tallahassee Police Department.
Van Fulton, Liberty County Sheriff's Department.
Glenn Kimball, Calhoun County.
Jack Campbell, State Attorney's Office.
Mike Harrison, Gulf County Sheriff.
Wayne Padgett, Taylor County.
Mike McNeil, Jefferson County Sheriff.
Cody Blackburn, the intern.
Dan Van Dermy, Chief Medical Officer at the FSU College of Medicine.
Jay Reed, I'm the CEO of Appalachia Center.
Lauren Facing with Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare.
AJ Smith, Franklin County Sheriff.
Mark Brown, Florida Highway Patrol.
Keith Wilmer, SBOE, Tallahassee Region.
Brett Srirachi, DeSoto County Sheriff.
Before we start the video, is there any opening comments to any of the sheriffs or FDLE or FHP or would like to make before we get the video going? All right.
I'm going to say something.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm probably the most vocal one about meth in our area. I talk to the state attorney all the time about it, and his local prosecutor, and Jay, and a lot of these mental health and experts. We've talked a lot about it because it is such a problem in the rural counties and now even the metropolitan area. It's starting to be a problem here for y'all. So one of the things, I met with my county commission yesterday to talk about a rehab center. We're going to start a rehab center in Franklin County. It's going to be open to anybody and everybody. And we're going to partner with some of these folks that are here. And that I got buy-in from my commissioners yesterday. So now I'm going to be looking for money. I'm going to probably go to the state, look at Triumph. I'll see, I'm going to be talking to Congressman Dunn about any kind of money that may be there. And I'm going to say this because I'm going to have to leave by 11 o'clock. But we talked about it at the last meeting we had in Gulf County, that we're currently doing a faith-based rehab program in the jail. We're probably going to replicate that in our rehabilitation center that's going to be open to anybody that's not incarcerated. But what we're doing in the jail now, we talked about it with some of the sheriffs the other day, but we're going to open it up to our other partners and in the smaller counties that have someone who may be serving jail time that wants to be rehabilitated they can come to our jail. We'll take them from their jails, from Taylor County, Gulf County, Liberty County, Calhoun County, and put it, because we have one dorm that is nothing but Fresh Start for the people going through the 12-month rehab program. So if they, and I want to say this since I had them here, and I appreciate the State Attorney Jack Campbell being on board with this. I know we've had discussions about it, and so that's one of the ways we're going to help to combat this drug and to see a turn for the positive instead of for the negative like we see so much now. I got my jail small. I got 70 people in jail. Every single one of them that is there either directly or indirectly a result of drugs, and most of them meth. So, and these other sheriffs probably had the same problem. So I think all of us working together, groups like you're pulling together now, Sheriff, are going to be certainly make it happen. Have a positive outcome, because we have to do it. Opioids are a problem in the big cities, but that's not our problem. You know, every day it's a meth-related issue. So that's what I had to say. Thank you for doing this, and
Thank you, Sheriff. All right, let's roll the video.
It's all over Northwest, Southwest, Northeast, Leon County, all over city limits and the county limits. So it's something that's growing as a great epidemic in Leon County that we're trying to get under control at this time. This crystal meth is made in a factory. It is made by people that, like chemists, that get together and put the right chemicals together, and it puts out the purest type of crystal meth that you can have, as compared to the meth that we dealt with 6 years ago, which was the one pot meth. It was a hit and miss of how much purity you can get into it and how much actual methamphetamine you can get out of a product. With crystal meth, it's no doubt about it. It's made in bulk, and it's made to be pure. The Narcotics Division executed a search warrant in this neighborhood, and we actually seized the largest amount at that time of crystal meth that this agency had seen, which is over 1 kilo of crystal meth, which is street value of well over $12,000. And this is just an idea of one of the neighborhoods that you would never know. It's a normal trailer park. There's a playground. There's a basketball court. It's a normal playground, but yet you would never know that your next door neighbor is selling that much of crystal meth to a base that ranges from age to sex to race and everything. It's also making the property and some of the violent crimes spike. People that's on meth, as you know, it takes currency and money to purchase meth. So when you run out of meth, you resort to engage in illegal activity to support your habit, whether it's burglarizing homes or cars to find any little knick-knack items you can to sell, or you trade these items for drugs. Also, people that get on meth, their mental state is not stable at that time, so they're not really aware of what they're doing at certain times, so they go out and they commit crimes. Whether it's very seldom that they're acts of violence, but it's only acts of violence when they're agitated or something that provokes them. When we run the serial numbers on these items, we found they were stolen out of different residents. So the crystal meth is I can't actually say it's directly related, but in my personal professional opinion, I think that the crystal meth epidemic causes the other crimes to actually spike up. Unfortunately, it is made in large laboratories, probably in Mexico. We have got information and intel that the Mexican cartel, they're making meth as opposed to producing cocaine or heroin because of the quick turnaround and the profit they make. They have people that transport the meth into the United States, whether it's into Texas, whether it's to New Orleans, wherever it might be. And then it's distributed to different hubs around the southeast where we deal with. We see a lot of it in Georgia, mainly Atlanta, someone in Panama City, and going west because those are areas that's close to the coast. So we have mules that we call them that go and they travel and they pick up the meth and they bring back ounces of keys back to Tallahassee, and they have a distribution hub here, and they have their own suppliers that they distribute to, and that's how the meth gets into Leon County. It's scary because it's so easily accessible. It can be in any neighborhood, and the quantity of it is so easy. And it's also scary because if you don't know what it is, you wouldn't recognize it if you saw it. It looks just like glass. It looks like broken glass. So if you were not aware of what crystal meth was, you could be looking at it and not know it was in your face. That makes it scary. And also what makes it scary is the high potency of the addiction rate of crystal meth. We have interviewed people who have been addicted to meth say the first time they tried meth, there was an instant addiction. And we have very seldomly found people that's addicted to meth that actually find help and get help and the resources to get them off of meth. It's a very addictive drug. Unlike comparable drugs in cocaine and heroin, crystal meth is very addictive because of, like I said, where it's made and how it's made and the amount of methamphetamine in the drug.
Alright, I'm Sergeant Brendan Bruner with Leon County Sheriff's Office. I've been at this office since 2004, about 15 years, give or take. I'll give you a little background on myself. First and foremost, I put this out there, I'm not a public speaker. So I will do my best and do what I can do, but I'd like to give that disclaimer every time I talk in front of a group. I started off as most uniform patrol, about 4 years. I generally worked the northwest side of town, southeast, southwest. From there, I went into school resource for about 4 years, worked at 4 different schools, had a great experience doing that. After I got done with school resource, I moved into the Vice and Narcotics Unit. I spent about 3 years as a detective in that capacity and learned very quickly that drugs, narcotics, that was kind of my thing, and that's my passion, has been my passion. I eventually got promoted, became a sergeant on the road, became an FTO sergeant. From there, a supervisor spot opened up in the narcotics unit, and I would have regretted if I would have not put in for that. So I did, and that's where I am currently. I've been there about 2 years. I run a group of 7 detectives at this point. Lieutenant Green is my lieutenant in the unit, and I have a co-sergeant, Todd Lombardo. But we'll speak about the methamphetamine, a little bit of history, a little bit of what we're dealing with in our county. And I think that for the most part, it's probably going to mirror what you guys are dealing with in your county. Old school meth labs, you know, there was an evolution of methamphetamine as there is with a lot of drugs. But back when I was a detective, probably 2006, 2007, we were seeing a lot of what we refer to as old school meth labs. They were the one pot. You'd see Mountain Dew bottles full of just junk and crud, and you know, they'd have these salt generators. It's basically an old school way to make methamphetamine with everyday household products. And it got to the point with us that we were just finding mounds of this stuff dumped in national forests, and you know, it was an epidemic. Let's refer to it as an epidemic, because that's what it is. Let's not skate around, you know, the truth with all that. So, you know, I think a lot of people refer to it as a shake and bake method. That's what we've always referred to it here in our county. And don't get me wrong, we still run into that occasionally, just not as much. What we're seeing right now is people that we have put in jail for minimum mandatory sentences with this shake and bake, the old school method, whether it's 15 years, 7 years, 3 years, these individuals are starting to get out of jail, out of their minimum mandatory sentences. So they go back to what they know. That's the old school shake and bake kind of household method. And then eventually they figure out, oh my gosh, I can get this stuff a lot cheaper, it's pre-made, and it's coming from these cartels, it's a lot more pure, and I don't have to do all this work, I'll just do that. So we still do run into the shake and bake occasionally, but I think that you'll find the vast majority of your people that are making this, I'd be interested to see if they have been released from prison, you know, past couple months or whatever else, because they go back again to what they know. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about, you know, cartel production and, you know, ultimately super labs, which go hand in hand with all that. Some of the stuff we talked about, the one pot or the shake and bake method or the old school method, that's just obviously some of the equipment or accoutrements that need to be used to make this. I mean, you've got your Sudafed, you've got instant cold packs, got to have your Sudafed starting fluid, you know, Red Devil lye, salt, all of that stuff is basically used to cook methamphetamine. There's more, there's not an obvious process to it all, But those are some lithium batteries. You find lithium batteries, that's a major aspect of it. You gotta have lithium for that process. So just some of the things you use. That's an example of the one pot, we refer to as a one pot, or the old school method. Ultimately, what you can see is, we call that sludge. That's all your lithium batteries and all this other junk that's basically at the bottom of this liquid. Your top layer, after this process is complete, is all your liquid methamphetamine. Those little black pieces that you see in that suspending liquid there, that's chunks of lithium batteries that are floating around in that liquid that basically kicks off some of this process to make your methamphetamine. But that's what the finished process looks like, and ultimately what they do is they strain out all the gunk. You have your liquid left. They call it, the process after that is called salting out. Basically, they take that liquid, there's a couple different ways you can do it, but ultimately they turn that liquid into a solid, which turns into crystal methamphetamine. So, some of the stuff that we're dealing with in Leon County, these are a couple of our closed cases that we've dealt with in the past year or so. Obviously, and I'm sure that the other sheriffs can kind of echo this sentiment, you have your guns and your money and everything that comes along with it. All of this is crystal methamphetamine. Obviously you have your guns, you have your US currency, scales. We occasionally find some prescription pills mixed up, but again, I think a lot of that has kind of stepped off the map a little bit in terms of the pills. I mean, meth is a deal. I mean, let's just be blunt, let's just be serious about it. That's what we're dealing with. Gallon Ziploc bag of methamphetamine. This is becoming extremely common. That's the pure cartel meth. I don't know if we have a picture of the finished kind of one pot or old school cooked methamphetamine. It's way different than this stuff. This stuff is manufactured, it's coming from Mexico, it's coming from super labs. I mean, this stuff is, if you want to talk about beautiful meth, that's beautiful meth. I mean, that's what it is. That's 5 kilograms of methamphetamine that we got about 4 months ago. That came from South Georgia into our county, and we were able to intercept it through some means that won't be discussed, but we were able to intercept that. And you know, that was a big hit in Leon County, and that's the stuff that we're seeing. I mean, 5-6 kilos of methamphetamine is not uncommon. So, trend, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. I think that everybody can see there's an upward trend. This is basically methamphetamine offenses and people arrested. We're seeing the upward trend, and I believe that we're probably going to continue to see that upward trend. I think that we have some 2019 stats of current. This is this year, 84 methamphetamine related arrests. We were able to break it down to about roughly 20% African American male, 4% African American female, 45% white male, 30% white female. So those are some of the demographics that we're seeing again in Leon County. Trends, a lot of this stuff, in my perspective, is coming from South Georgia. The vast majority is coming from South Georgia. And I don't know if it's something that a lot of these small municipalities and towns in South Georgia, it's difficult to police. They don't have a lot of people policing some of these communities, and some of these towns have become major hubs for, by way of Atlanta, to distribute this stuff through the South. So we are seeing a lot of meth coming in from these small towns into our county via South Georgia. The organization of meth users and dealers is nothing that I've ever seen before. It's so sporadic. These guys are up 3 or 4 days. There seems to be no discernible pattern of hierarchy. One day you'll have a major meth dealer who's pushing kilos of methamphetamine, and he's the man or the woman. The next day they're getting their power cut off and they're living in a car somewhere in a Walmart parking lot. So there's no consistency in terms of organization for our local people. You start to branch beyond that, and start to get into some of your higher level organizations in terms of cartel or some of their members, obviously there's a hierarchy and all that. But as far as having a group of individuals, it's very difficult for us to pinpoint, you know, the man or the woman here in Leon County, because it's just so sporadic, and these guys are, they're meth users. I mean, they're up days on end, and you know, there's no telling what they're gonna do. It's a very odd organization to deal with. Some of the things that we're doing to help combat this that has been very, very successful for us is we are able to utilize the U.S. State Attorney's Office. Jason Cootie and Eric Mountain have been very, very helpful with helping us take some of these state cases that we have, pass them on to the federal government and indict them federally. We've probably, I think it's a little higher now, but 25, 26 people we've been able to take at the state level and get them indicted federally, which kind of helps us with sentencing guidelines and things of that nature, things that we're not capable of doing at the state level. We're passing on to them because sometimes we get just a bigger bang for our buck, which definitely helps us out. In our office, the narcotics office, we have an ATF agent. She's been great working with us because I think as you saw with some of the pictures, along with the drugs comes the guns, comes the stolen guns, comes the burglary stuff and whatever else. So we're able to pull her into all of our search warrants, and she's able to do a lot of things on her end in terms of the federal government and the weapons. So again, we're kind of looking at bang for the buck, and how do we deal with this proactively, and you know, what's the best thing for us to try to deal with these people. So ATF has been very helpful. DEA has been great as well. Let's face it, we don't have the assets that the federal government has, so a lot of times we ask for some help, or we can count on them for some assets, whether it be a large sum of cash to do some operations or whatever else. So we look to them for a lot of those resources, manpower, and they've been great. Our Spider unit, we have a collaboration between those guys and girls quite a bit. They're kind of our feet on the ground, and they're steady knocking out some of the users that we have around town, and we have a really good chain of intelligence going on between our people, boots on the ground, and our investigative units, because out there they're dealing with the same people we are. It's just a matter of passing that intelligence on, and they're a great asset for the narcotics unit, and a great partnership. I know that we've dealt with Guest and Derek Terry's here. We've definitely worked with him, FDLE, Manny, TPD. What we've really done, and I think it's helped tremendously, is a lot of the guys and girls that I grew up with as an investigator are now supervisors, and you know, have a pretty big picture in some of these squads. So we've really started to collaborate a lot with the local entities, which has certainly helped us. Wapella County, I know we have Vince Race, his father's here, and we work a lot with their narcotics people, because we have a lot coming over the line from Wapella to Leon, as well as we do Gadsden. So, you know, we're all in it together, sharing the same issues and probably a lot of the same people. But you know, we continue to try to combat this effort, and you know, the only way that I see doing it is just leveraging every resource that we have, whether it even means working with other counties, keeping that open. We've got to do it, otherwise it's just going to be a moot point. I mean, we've got to continue to fight the battle, but we're not going to be able to leave it alone. So you know, you've got to have the resources and the communication, the intelligence being passed and gathered. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And I think that's pretty much it. I hope it's, you know, shed some light on a few things. And like I said, I believe that a lot of this stuff is going to be very familiar to you all already. So I appreciate the time and you guys just kind of listening to what I have to say. So thank you very much.
Can I ask you what a spider? I know everybody here probably knows what spiders are, but what is a spider?
Sheriff, you want to get that one? Chief Summers, you back there? Explain spider.
The spider is our immediate response to street level problems, squad. Right now, it's operational out of the patrol division. Chief Beasley and I stood it up not too long after the sheriff came into office. And the short answer, we knew there would never be an opportune time, but it was the right time, and everybody gave from within, and they've been, as Sergeant said, very effective. Not only effective with us, but they've been working with FHP. We've had a number of initiatives serving all the areas, and it is our, really, beyond the first response patrol deputies world, it's that next group that has a little bit more time, has a little bit more access to resources that can hopefully, as Sergeant talked about, address a problem as soon as possible, which then frees up the longer-term narcotics detectives to work the larger cases.
All right, thank you, Sarge. Any questions of Sarge before we go into the next piece of this is law enforcement feedback. One of the things that we recognize right the bat is that most crimes in the Big Bend, because we are, for the most part, Tallahassee somehow becomes a hub, you might say, people moving back and forth, coming to and from Tallahassee, from Franklin, from McCullough, from Gadsden, from Jefferson, and beyond. And we've tried to put together what we call Deputies Without Borders, and the essential piece of that, quite honestly, has been Florida Highway Patrol and their assistance that gives us the ability to stretch out beyond our borders, because obviously they're statewide. I'm not sure how much we've used Deputies Without Borders with respect to specifically directed at the meth problem or drug problem, but that's not beyond the pale, you might say, in terms of our efforts to try to do it. But what I wanted to do here this morning is to have a conversation from the law enforcement folks first, and then we'll get into some of our mental health providers as well, and others, about how we try to first, that we have agreement that it is the problem that we believe it to be. And obviously, Sheriff Smith has said, that AJ has indicated that it's a tremendous problem in his community. And if we have that agreement, then what can we do as law enforcement agencies to collectively try to work on this effectively?
Well, I think I'll speak. Small counties are a lot different than the bigger counties. We have a lot more resources. I think we talked about the meeting we had in Gulf County. Our narcotics unit doesn't have 10 people in it. It has maybe 2. One, if somebody's on vacation, one person can't get the job done. You're relying on patrol. We push our patrol deputies to do a lot of proactive stuff. And in order to do that, the less you're gonna find on the road, it goes back into the house. We gotta have informants and stuff like that. So, like me, that's where I could use help from FDLE, bigger agencies that could help us with some of these types of investigations with maybe informants, people work undercover, stuff like that. That's where, as far as the enforcement piece is concerned, because we gotta keep the pressure on, and if you don't, then they just come out in force. So that's where I'm sure Sheriff Harrison, probably Sheriff Kimball, Sheriff White, we're probably all in the same boat right there. So resources, money, Washington, give us some more money to drug investigators.
So, yeah, I'm curious, can dogs smell meth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so drug dogs would be, and I know they're expensive as heck, but.
I need people.
You need people.
I need people. That's what I need.
I'm like Sheriff Smith, small county with limited resources. We've got 2 people assigned to narcotics unit, 1 person down. Our biggest issue is keeping informants. There's Rachel's Law, I'll go ahead and tell you, has crippled a lot of what we do. It's done for a good reason, we understand that. But the days of pulling someone off of a traffic stop and using them are long gone. The days of working someone that's on probation are long gone. And it's hurt us. And we are trying all the time to recruit good informants, and what we need is agencies sharing people that are willing to go out and make buys, just if nothing else, to pay them. And that's what we've got to do. That's what we've got to do. But we can't work past just our street level users to get to the dealers a lot of times, because we don't have that ability to make buys like we used to. And if any sheriffs or anyone has an idea of how we can get more informants and make more buys, I've got good equipment, I've got good officers that know what to do. But our biggest issue is informants that can go make control buys to work up that chain and stay away from the street level user, to work up the next chain where we're getting the major suppliers that are bringing it in, because we can't make it past that threshold.
And for us, even if we could flip them, they're so sick that the chance of from the time of them going through a controlled buy and them staying sober till the time it comes to testify, there's a pretty good chance they're gonna relapse 3 or 4 times and may well be dead. So that's another thing that it's so, as a physician, this is so powerful stuff. Even when we do flip one, they're incredibly unreliable, even compared to a crackhead, to somebody addicted to crack. Trying to use somebody who's a meth user as a CI, put them in a courtroom, they're not going to do well. They're very non-compliant, I guess is a nice way to put it.
And our dealers out there are smart. I mean, they don't want to make that sell to someone that won't use with it. And then the integrity of the case is blown once that person uses it. So that's another challenge there.
AJ hit the nail on the head. It takes money. That's what it takes to get it done. It takes money.
I know we work with Taylor County real well, because again, we're a small agency. We only have 2 drug investigators in our drug task force, and there's a safety issue working 2 guys. So we like to work with Taylor County and even Madison County. We found out that this isn't a Taylor County problem, a Jefferson County or a Leon County problem. It's a Big Bend problem. It's everywhere. And we have to work together and share that intelligence. And the cost of these investigations for a small agency like mine to fund the CIs or even make the buys is hard for us. We don't have the budget. I mean, we're spending our money, just trying to keep the deputies we have, our equipment going. So these investigations can be very pricey for a agency like ours that's financially strapped. So.
And on the financial end of it, it's easy to kind of throw out and say, well, let's make some grants available. The problem with small counties is we don't have the resources to manage the grants and apply to the grant. If there's a grant that's done at the Gulf County Sheriff's Office, I do it, and that's just for a lack of resources and a lack of having the personnel to be able to do it. And it's not only getting the grant and getting the money in hand, it's the accountability that comes after that. So, and I know I like live in a world where I'd like somebody to come in and give me a pot of money and say, spend wisely, go forward. And that's not gonna happen, I know. It's just, they've got to have a level of accountability. But if we could do it more on a regional level, tap it into some larger agencies that have the resources to manage the grants and distribute it out from there. I know we're working, in years past, when we had the violent crime and drug council, the grants that came through that, they were a little bit easier to administer through FDLE. It was a pot of money that we could tap into for enforcement, and just a little bit less of the red tape, because
now there's no money for drugs there.
Right.
Strictly victims.
Victims, right.
Yeah.
And BCDC does still exist. I think it's still
I'm
exists.
still on
The
board,
funding
but
hasn't been.
there's no money there.
The funding's not in there at this point, and that has been discussed internally on approaching that. I'm not sure exactly where we're at, but that Violent Crime and Drug Crime Council does still exist. It's just
Sounds
funding.
like there's a law, Rachel's law, that's making this harder. What is that?
That actually started right here in Leon County. I'm sure there's some folks that probably can speak a little bit more intelligently on it than I can, but go ahead.
There was a confidential informant who got killed doing a buy that happened here in Leon County, and put simply, the legislature came in and laid out a Bill of Rights, which allows people who are going to be worked as confidential informants to have the right to counsel, the right to be evaluated. Courts are all, state attorney's office are all consulted before someone
where the old days they talk about, they used to literally pick somebody up, possession of cocaine, all right, you come and show me who you bought it from, and we work them right now, while they're relatively fresh. Now that you have these procedural safeguards that are in, that if they're on probation, we gotta get judge's permission. If they're actively using, we gotta wait for them to sober up. And so those safeguards, while well thought out and intended, it means that we can't be actionable where they used to be able to literally grab one who's just used it, who could walk right back into the same dealer and act like they're buying the next rock, and we could roll them up. Now you have to give a lot of legal protections. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I hear it. Is there a way around that or through that or?
It would be intended by our own use. You would have to get the legislature to back it out, and I think you'd find some, certainly federally, y'all could overrule the Florida legislature, I guess. But they,
Don't be so certain we can do anything.
there'd be some definite political challenges if you were to lean against that.
Yeah, I'd just like to attest what Sheriff Smith was saying about it's kind of creeping its way to municipal areas. Was here. If you back out all the cannabis and derivatives of cannabis in the Tallahassee area, about 75% of our seizures are met. In much lesser degree, crack, cocaine, and then opioids, 2-3%. So about 75% is met with seizures. Once you back out cannabis. And yeah, we're probably Sheriff Kimbrell and Sheriff Harrison and I. A lot of our stuff's coming from the west, not from here. So we're kind of in between. So stuff's a little bit here, a lot more from the west. So that, just like having a meeting now, we have partners to the west. That probably needs to even be a larger meeting with more sheriffs and police chiefs and stuff like that that are in the Panhandle, because it is, a lot of these folks have a pretty good network, and they're working, in a certain geography.
Same way with us. I mean, probably 75% of the meth is coming from Panama City and points beyond there. And if we get 25 coming from Tallahassee or Georgia, that's a large percentage. Most of it's coming from Panama City.
But where in Panama City they get it? So why is Panama City distribution center? Coming through the airport, the port?
It's coming, I would say mostly by just people bringing it by vehicle. It's going to be coming in from your other hubs out, further to the west. Pensacola, Mobile's got a huge problem with it, about now to Houston and down.
Sheriff, I'm here representing Sheriff White from Liberty County. And let me preface this, I started working there in January. I actually retired from another agency. I was police chief in Chattanooga for 16 years. But I've been there since January. And we have one officer that's assigned narcotics. We need boots on the ground, obviously, because we only run 2 deputies on a shift. We use our patrol to put the pressure on. That's what he's doing, and it's been effective to a point of we make arrests. But we've made 28 drug arrests since January, and 15 of those are directly meth related. Now, a lot of it is, it's a small quantity. We don't get a lot because we're a rural population of 9,000 people. We don't have a lot of money. The residents don't have a lot of money, especially the ones doing this. So they don't have a lot of quantity of anything that they have, but they have it. On the other side, too, we've had 20 Baker Acts that were done since January, and 13 of those were directly related to meth addiction. 13. My officers are running to Tallahassee, every day. And then, sad things, they're coming back and recidivism and natives. We're picking up the same person 2 weeks later. I know Sheriff White, especially, we definitely need boots on the ground. And we need resources for sure. We just, we don't have a lot of money to run a lot of undercover, operations. And then when we do, the ones I've seen, normally, like I said, if you won't use it with them, they won't sell. If they don't know you, they pretty much are not going to sell you. We have to have a local, or they're just not going to serve. And then when we do get them to serve them, they're bringing it from, we'll go to one spot and they'll set up and then they'll make us move to another spot for it to be delivered. Which it hurts us because we're running, you know, one man trying to do it, a couple other officers. We use Taylor County though, on our deputies across borders, and they were with us for a week. And I mean, every car we were stopping, we were finding that. I'm telling, I told Sheriff White, but I came from Gaston County. You know, we've got a meth problem, I'm not gonna say that we don't. But it's not like that, especially in Chattahoochee where I work. I mean, we find it in toys that are in the car, that's where they're hiding it, you know, you open a little toy up and there's crystal meth, you know. Cause like I said, we're not doing the shake and bakes anymore. And it's just everywhere. But we definitely would need, you know, more resources, you know, networking, which works good too, but we definitely need boots on the ground. And we just, you know, we don't have the money to hire.
If I can speak,
Yes,
not,
sir,
not
okay.
an inside table, just listening, and I'm working with CIs for probably 9 years of my career, senior detective, sergeant, lieutenant. I understand that the struggle is to document it. Our guys are very aggressive. The money aspect, the resources, and Sheriff White, I understand, you know, and Sheriff A.J. Smith, you don't have people, you know, and I know most of y'all personally, you know, have my number. We're willing to come and help. We have done operations in Liberty, Franklin, Marcella, Gas, and we're stretched in. We have probably a little more people than you do, but some of these people are common, so we understand the aspect of that. The question, you know, no one has asked is why has this been such a problem now? 4 years ago, I tell you, I worked as a sergeant in Vice. The cost of meth was $100 a gram, and you think about a gram of sugar. I mean, it's no bigger than your thumbnail. The price of meth now for grams is like $15, $20. The price has gone down, so the demand of it has gone up. So it's like when plasma TVs first came out, everybody remember, they were $1,800 for a 40-inch TV. Now, every house we go in has a smart TV, and they're cheaper. So the product is readily available. It is a struggle. Our guys know that meth heads, they tweak, they stay up late at night. They are inconsistent, and like State Attorney Jack Campbell said, we are aggressive on them. We get them signed up, we get them cleared, and we work them within days because we know in 4 or 5 days they can relapse, they can go. We had one of the biggest seizures here in Leon County where we did a search warrant, not the one I mentioned on the video, but another one right after that. We arrested some people, we got them to work, and we got over 1.5 kilos of crystal meth. They do work, they cooperate. I mentioned also in the video about the number of people that really get help. Some of them seek help, some of them don't. We don't have the resources for that. So the only help we have is to try to provide them legal help and help them with the charges. That's all we can do. We don't have any direction to send them. So in order for us to progress, those are the things we need to do. But this is why crystal meth has taken over from crack cocaine. We very seldom get CIs with crack cocaine. The weed is always going to be there. You have a college town, but the crystal meth has taken over because the price of a kilo, $9,000, is compared to $23,000, $24,000 for cocaine. I mean, they're business people. This is why the Mexican cartel decided to switch over. They're all about business and the turnover rate. There's a drug dealer that can go through a kilo of cocaine within a week. I mean, a kilo of meth in a week because they sell it so rarely. An ounce is 28 grams. I know I'm talking in terms of y'all, but for those of you who know law enforcement, $450. I mean, that's nothing. Where an ounce of cocaine should cost you $1,400, $1,500. So, the things we need are resources. The things we need to do is probably tighten up on the judicial part about when they get arrested. How long did the dealer stay locked up? Let's tighten up on the penalties. The reason why what Sergeant Bruner mentioned about the shake and bake, we had guidelines. If they got caught with a certain amount, they were doing 15 to 20 years for precursor, which is the chemical that produces the shake and bake. Even the oil it was weighed and it was weighing 200 grams, they were charged with that. Now we're arresting people for an ounce of meth, put them in their cell, and they're out in 30 days, and they're back on the street, and they're back supplying the people.
Well, I think, yeah, go down this rabbit hole. But yeah, when you start talking about guidelines for sentencing, and state attorney's gonna know all about this. I mean, I got a guy, he got 40 months on his 6th time selling meth. That's ridiculous. That's what's gotta stop, and I'm hoping maybe we can start some dialogue with the state attorney where his guys will be like, okay, if we catch somebody twice selling meth, really one time, but twice, we need to, I don't know, we need to have there's no judges here, but maybe the chief judge needs to be here to hear this so he can put it out to the other judges. Look, we gotta start hitting these people hard, and maybe, because we all, everybody's like, I tell them, incarceration or rehabilitation, take your pick.
Yeah.
But the ones that don't want rehabilitation, they gotta be in jail because they're gonna continue to sell and be out there doing the other crimes that are associated with it, so.
Yeah. So what they're talking about a little bit, you have a scientific background. When we were catching it in solution form, obviously the weight was a lot easier for us to make the meth. Now we're getting crystallized, which is a much lighter. So what we're talking about, a dosage, I think, is 1/10 of a gram, right, Bobby?
Yeah.
Okay, so a hit of meth is 1/10 of a gram. 1/10 of a gram is what you're talking about in rough numbers. So the thresholds right now, 14 grams, 28 grams, 200 grams, where we're moving around. The legislature, where I've been spending a lot of time lately, is moving very strongly against simple possession, and there's score sheets and things like that. But as a state, we are working, not trying to put people in prison for simple possession. So 14 grams, if we're doing 1/10 of a gram, we're talking about 140 doses. And so 140 doses, somebody walking around with 14 grams, a real meth head would have used that by now. I mean, their consumption rate, they're gonna have a hard time holding on to 14 grams or holding on to enough money. So they're gonna burn through that. Those are mainly gonna be my dealers, but they gotta be really big dealers for me to get a minimum mandatory. Otherwise, that's what's happened. We literally had the sheriff testify the other day, and to be able to try to get the point across to the judges, our min-mans, because it's now in a crystallized form, has kind of shifted. So on a legislative, if we could slide that down to, if it's in a crystalline thing, then we could probably start making a difference. But I can tell you, having been spending a lot of time at the legislature, they're trying to drop their DOC population significantly. And so they're talking about moving those limits a different direction. But that's a reality of where we're dealing with, and that's one of the big differences between the shake and bake, where we used to have all these precursors which were heavy. The Coleman fuel was heavy. All of these other things were heavy, so we get massive. You get a jug and it would weigh 4 or 5 pounds of meth. Well, yeah, they were getting huge hits, and we don't mind being aggressive, but that cull between users and dealers is much more difficult legally.
You are aggressive, and I like that, and I appreciate that. I think one of the problems depends on what judges hear the case. And they decide to sentence at the bottom of the guidelines, when they could, somebody who has a 50-page rap sheet gets the bottom of the guidelines, 40 months, when they probably already get 40 years, so that we're done with it. If they're gonna come out and sell this death in our community, they need to be out. And so I would encourage maybe the next meeting, have Chief Judge here, so he can hear what we have to say as well.
What I'll do is try to schedule, the sheriffs would like to join me, and I'll set a meeting with the chief judge.
Yeah, because just like state attorney said, to get a 6-time drug dealer, even though he was a small street level drug dealer, he was disrupting a lot of neighborhoods and a lot of people's lives. To get him, the judge was on the verge of giving him probation, even though he'd already been to DOC. And so I had to go testify just to make that happen. That's wrong. And that's part of the issue that state attorney's dealing with too. His people are out there doing a good job, pushing hard. Our folks are working hard. They're out there working late hours, dangerous job. And then here's a guy who should be gone for the rest of his life. It's 40 months. He already served 15 months in the county jail, so he's gone for 2 years. He's back. You know what he's gonna do when he comes back? He's gonna be selling meth.
What's the chance of rehabbing that guy?
What's the chance? If he doesn't want it, no chance. Nobody will rehab unless they want it.
It's tough if you wanna be rehabbed.
I think the percentages of rehab is 90%. It's a 90%.
Most addicted drugs ever been produced.
Not rehab, I guess that's a segue into the mental health care side of the equation here.
Well, I think every sheriff, I'm gonna speak for them, I think that if they know somebody that wants rehabilitation, they wanna see them that way. I do. These guys, we talk about a lot. Rehabilitation or incarceration, take your pick, it's easy.
And I think the problem is that the meth that we are seeing now is 99 to 100% pure meth. There's no weak meth. Some of the meth that we are seeing is mixed with fentanyl. So now you have 100% meth on top of fentanyl. So that is why you have such an addictive nature for these people, is that they're taking one hit and they're through the roof. And that's the best thing that they've ever had. And they continue to chase it and they're not gonna get it. But it's, the Mexican cartel has perfected the production that everything that we are seeing, I'm from FDLE, we send all our stuff through DEA to get tested for purity, because on the federal side, they will convict someone quicker on the purity levels versus on the state. So if they have 50% purity or more, then they're gonna get indicted. But everything we are seeing is 99 to 100% pure.
You tested for the fentanyl too?
Yes, the FDL, or the DEA labs will test it. FDLE labs will test for fentanyl as well.
Have a feeling for what the percentage is positive for fentanyl or laced with some opioid, fentanyl or whatever?
We're working a case right now where we've got a heroin dealer in town who's responsible for an overdose death, and everything that we're getting from him is fentanyl in it.
There's no 28-day program that I've found, and I'll leave it to the doctor. This is not I mean, when they tell me I'm gonna do outpatient treatment for that, and I mean, from my point of view, that's too far. They're just blowing smoke at that point. And
It's, from a treatment aspect and what we're seeing and what we've known from, it's very difficult with meth. It's not like your opioid where we've introduced Matt's treatment where we can do it with Vivitrol and Suboxone. It's basically cognitive behavior therapy, and it's heavy doses, and it's not just the treatment aspect. This is it's from, we've recently got a rural development, a rural utilities and distance learning grant, and we're in 5 of the 7 rural counties now. We're providing some type of education or substance abuse education in every one of the county jails represented here today. And the goal is we got the telemed to start being able to provide one-on-one services to those that want it. But the planning, the development, and the services, that's just a piece of it. What all these other communities are dealing with is housing situations, employment opportunities. I mean, we can treat them and we can get them off because they want to get off and they want to, better their family, but we have to employ them. So we're shifting, part of our focus is to trying to get career sources with us so we can create a cadre of team for each one of these communities so we can surround some of these people that actually truly want the services, because it's devastating. It's not just that person, it's ruined the families. So it's a tall order, but fortunately we've had great response from the staff in each one of the counties that we've been in. Very open. We're working with their schedules and our schedules. Geography is a huge part of what our agencies have to deal with. Fortunately, telemed and the technology that's out there that we can promote and push in is going to make a significant impact. So, but it's resources. For me to put a master's level therapist type person in a Franklin County, it's very difficult. Getting ahead of some of this, we're now in every school in Leon County with a health and wellness person. And in some of the rural communities, we have 3 in McCullough County, we have 1 in Liberty, we have 1 person in Madison County, in the school systems to try to help teachers and to try to get in front of some of this, because that's where we're going to head it off.
What age you start at in the prevention education in school?
We're in elementary schools. We have 1 health and wellness person for every 4 elementary schools in Leon County. As part of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas initiative, Leon County, the school system added some additional resources with the help of Big Bend community-based care. We're able to now be in one for every 4 elementaries, but every middle school and every high school has a health and wellness person. It used to be prevention. It's more health and wellness because kids they're coming to school with a variety of issues. It's not just substance abuse. There's trauma. There's all sorts of family issues. So it's kind of a diverse mix of things.
When Sheriff McNeil brought us here before, we talked about opioids, it was suggested we should start teaching preventative healthcare, teach the kids not to use in the 3rd grade. What's that?
Real young. I used to be middle school age, kind of started, but yeah, it's got to be. It's gonna have to take you several fronts to make this work, and it's not gonna be fixed overnight. We're talking about a long-range plan. It'll take years to turn this around. It won't happen overnight.
We're successful, and once we educate the kids, we catch them young, we think we really do change the.
It might be 20, 30 years. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, and there's kind of two pieces to this. There is an education piece, which is important, and there's a genetic piece. There are folks who, based on family inheritance and based on genetics, have a greater propensity of risk for addictions, which is something we know. So that education will catch some of those folks, won't catch all of them. We sort of need to have really everything together. We need to have the emergency response piece. We clearly need to have the consequence piece as represented by law enforcement laws. And we need to have the treatment piece. So if this is a good segue for you Congressman into the medical piece of it, in your packet, there's a fairly comprehensive, I think it was really some one of the slides, which is a fairly comprehensive PowerPoint in terms of what we have on the front end for diversion services and treatment statistics. And it's out of the seat of that last we are in every county. We are in the big band, one of the 8 counties in the big band. We see about 7,500 duplicated clients annually, and for the purpose of this discussion, the thing that we do is we operate both the central receiving facility and the detox unit. So the front end treatment response tends to come through us. The central receiving facility are the folks who've been either Baker Acted or Marching Acted from each of the 8 counties. They come to us, and then we work with the hospitals in terms of who gets directed where. If folks are coming for primarily a meth addiction issue, they stay with us because we have the detox unit. But as Lieutenant Cohen pointed out, they don't stay for very long. Our average length of time on detox is about just under 3 days. And so it's long enough to get the drugs out of somebody's system. It's long enough to get somebody stabilized. We will try and keep them long enough to make sure they're hooked up with somebody in the community, which is usually this village. But there's no guarantees of that. And so once someone is discharged from that emergency service, we're very reliant on whether there are outpatient services in place and ideally residential services in place, which we have far too few of, though I know some are coming online soon. We saw in 1718, we saw 5,655 folks. Now those were not by any means all folks involved in substance use. That's both mental health and substance use. We performed just over 4,000 assessments so far this fiscal year, so we're on track for about the same number. On page 2, you'll see what happened, and this kind of correlates with a lot of what folks have been saying in law enforcement. The second slide down there. Our detox facilities, 14-bed short-term detox, provide services to both voluntary clients and those brought under the Marchman Act, which is the Involuntary Act that allows folks to be hospitalized for public intoxication. Between fiscal year 12-13 and fiscal year 16-17, we averaged 734 admissions annually. Last year, we had a 25% increase in that. We went up to 899 clients. We are on track this year for probably about 840 admissions. So this was a very dramatic bump up for us. And it's the reason I did the numbers over time was to demonstrate that this isn't just sort of your normal fluctuation. We see sort of a plateau movement here. So on page 3, there's a chart that shows who our clients are. Most of the clients that we get in detox are there for alcohol use. Period. That's about half of the folks that we see typically. So I know that's another discussion, but that is half the folks that we see. But we've seen some interesting trends recently. So if you look over at that far right column, what you see is that both meth use and cocaine use, folks coming to detox facilities, those have increased 74% in the last 2 years. And meth is particularly dramatic. It's gone from 12 in fiscal year 16-17 to 36 last year. We're projecting 47 this year. That is our fastest growing segment of the detox population. You contrast that if you go up to the third column there with opioid use. So we started at around 56 2 years ago. We went up to 60, and we went down to 44 last year. What we're seeing in terms of patterns of use for folks who are being brought to detox anyway is that the opioid crisis in this region seems to have plateaued. It's not, gone away. It's plateaued and it's going down. I think going exactly with what Bobby was talking about, I think a lot of this has to do with the combination of the tightening up of the supply source of opioids, especially on the side of some legislation that's come through in the last few years, coupled with the dropping price of meth. So we really are. We've always seen more meth that is being recognized in rural counties around here. That's never gotten some attention, but fortunately we're doing it now. But in addition to that consistent use over time, we've seen a real spike in the past couple of years. So here are some of the things that we're doing on a frontline basis. And again, I think we mentioned this the last time we were here, that we work very closely with the folks in this village who are doing the, I'd say, the tertiary treatment things. In some cases, the secondary treatment, they've got them in residential programs, but they're doing a lot with the outpatient piece. We're getting most of these folks on the front end. So in 2018, as a response to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, the legislature funded mobile response teams really across the state, so that we would have essentially 24-hour crisis response to mental health and in some cases substance abuse crises. One of the things we've done in this region, which the discussion with our managing entity, Big Ben, was very helpful with, is that we've been able to partner with law enforcement. So those folks around the room here are in partnership with us in terms of making sure that we make that our response time. We provided telemedicine capacity in each of the jails and on a mobile basis for law enforcement folks around the room who would like that capacity. And I think we've got something like 5 out of 8 that we're currently in. And that's done on our own internal platform at Flashy Center. So that on a 24/7 basis, we can have direct connectivity from law enforcement folks to our central receiving facility to help make assessments and help do sort of make the call about someone who's in and out of the substance abuse crisis and whether they need to come tell us or not, whether they tend to be pulling these, put them in the car and put them in or not. So that came online in December, and since its inception, we've had 87 cases. About 72% of those have been resolved without inpatient hospitalization, which is a really good thing. 48% was completed face-to-face on the scene, 38% were resolved telephonically. So we've got some good statistics in terms of our avoidance of unneeded services. One of the interesting things on the next page is the substance use situation. So we don't get a ton of calls for a mobile response team about substance abuse. This is about 14% of those 87 assessments. I think for the most part, folks are just brought into on detox. But of those calls, 6 are alcohol related, 3 were meth related, 2 were cannabis related, and 1 was opiate related. So even into those very small numbers, you're seeing exactly the same pattern that we're seeing in detox, which is that the meth utilization, meth folks in crisis are kind of on the rise. So we have the central receiving facility, which everybody comes into. We've got mobile response teams in the office working with law enforcement. We also, as part of that, and part of telemedicine I mentioned earlier, is that we have telemedicine capacity, not just for the mobile response units for the sheriffs, but we have them in the jails. So if there is a jail detainee or someone in the detention facility who's in need of intervention for behavioral health, we can do that. We can do that telematically if necessary. So what we try to do is extend as much treatment capacity into jails, on the streets, and into law enforcement as we can to help piece of this crisis. One of the things I also wanted to mention, and Chief Summers and I were talking about this yesterday, is just the day before yesterday, actually, we got a grant from the state to create what we're calling the first team here in the county, which is going to be a forensic intervention team. It's a new 7-member team that we're going to put on the detention facility. It's helping to divert folks from the criminal justice system. And one of the things that Sheriff McNeely right there has been very eloquent about over the years is making sure that we are partnering with healthcare and law enforcement to make sure that folks who can be delivered into treatment get treatment. And I'm not sure who mentioned this, but one of the things that's really crucial, I think, in this whole issue is recognizing that the enforcement piece of it and the consequences piece of what we're doing is really only half the issue. The treatment piece is the thing that over time is going to, if we do it right and we've got the right resources for it, be able to actually diminish the crisis. So that's my quick 3-second read.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Can I ask you something? You're heavily involved with this area we're discussing this morning. Is there some programs better than others? Have you found that to be true?
Sure. No, in terms of treatment programs.
Right.
I think the folks, I don't know how much penetration they have in County Sheriff. I think the folks in this village are pretty reliable in terms of their being able to follow clients, make sure that clients don't get lost, and provide a platform for them. You did raise an interesting question. There are a lot of different programs out there, and some of them are good and some of them are not so good.
I'm asking you a
Yeah,
question.
one of the things that I kind of suggest as a benchmark is, and you know, I'm going to offend anybody by saying this, but here it goes. I think if you look for non-profits, you look for folks that have been in the community for a long time, and you look for folks that have some form of national accreditation. So folks that, for instance, are CARF accredited, or JACO accredited, that means that on JACO accredited, that means that on a regular basis, we've got some objective eyes coming in, taking a look at what folks are doing. And these guys are tough. They're not, as is true for law enforcement accreditation. It's not a cakewalk to get accredited by these national agencies. You start running into some of the agencies that do not have that kind of accreditation, that don't have the long-term roots in the community. I think sometimes you see folks who are looking for a way to extract maximum profit and then move on. We've both seen it before.
Okay, if we track some of these programs to see what kind of success rate, percentage-wise, that has been successful.
So what you're asking about right now is one of the biggest challenges in behavioral health care on both the substance abuse and the mental health side, and that is that there have not consistently been appropriate outcome measures that have been applied by the funders to things across the board. And part of it in behavioral health care is that there historically hasn't been great agreement on broader outcome measures. Something like meth addiction is pretty easy, right? It's how long has somebody not been using meth? But then you have to think about what is how are you monitoring that? What's the engagement in the treatment program? Things like that. So I'm not aware of anything, maybe David can speak to this, I'm not aware of anything that's a broad-based outcome measure that is used by, that is applied to all of the programs that we're talking about, with the information that you're looking for.
See, before we head down a path asking money, introducing programs, we wanna know that we're gonna get good results.
Right, that's right.
And we don't wanna waste our time and money.
That's right.
We wanna figure out what's going to work, and let's get together collectively and let's head down that path to try to improve our areas we all live in, which we so dearly care about.
I think one of the things that you find is that you've got, I'm just gonna pick up for a minute here, if you've got an agency like this village that is nationally accredited, that accepts both Medicaid and state funding, one of the things that comes along with accepting both Medicaid and state GR through Big Bend is that there's a lot of eyes on what we do. We have some, disagreements from time to time about the appropriateness of the outcome measures, but we do have a lot of people looking over our shoulders in terms of, are you doing what you said you were gonna do? You actually have people in there, so that, to me, that would kind of be the first step on figuring that out. And I think if we're going to go after money, that should be one of the benchmark questions is, we're talking about national credit programs, we're talking about programs that have various kinds of monitoring on them. Further away you get from that not-for-profit, general revenue, Medicaid program, the more you get into areas where you have fewer and fewer eyes on. That's where people get in trouble.
Part of the issue that both Jay and I deal with in the rural communities is that the money's one thing, but to be able to actually earn the money sometimes is a little bit difficult because of the archaic way that we still get paid with respect to, you get paid for, you deliver a service, you get paid. And what I'd like to do is put 2 or 3 people in your community that work with your law enforcement, your probation staff, so we can surround people. Because substance abuse addiction is lifelong for some people. Some people relapse. Some people, relapsing is part of it. But being able to recognize their triggers, understand that they have a counselor's available, now they can get a counselor via this. When they're feeling, sometimes they can even track them as to, what areas to stay out of. Like the counselor will get a little ding on their phone saying one of your patients is in an area that's known for trafficking or drug addiction. You might want to try to reach out to them so they can engage them saying, what are you doing? Get on your plan.
The key to it is who's supervising the counselor, right? So you can have, the telemedicine has made it very easy to link up across a lot of different boundaries. The question I always ask is, okay, that's fine. What organization is the counselor working for? Who's supervising the counselor? What's their accreditation looking like? Because it's just, in some ways, to Sheriff Kimball's point, it's just become another avenue in many cases for some folks who are a little on the ill-trained side to get out there and start vending their wares.
All right, well, we've been in business for 47 years. Just finished our 7th audit with CARF 2,666 standards. I know they've gone down to the number. So, we want to be in these communities. It's our goal to be in these communities. Just a couple other things I want to touch on very briefly. I know I talked about some of the other stuff. The SDR grants and the SOAR grants that came down from the government was greatly used. Part of what our concern is the cliff. What happens if that money goes away? And we've engaged a lot of these people. Just to give you an idea of what we've done so far since Vivitrol, we've been, entered into this medically assisted treatment back in 2019. We have 96 clients that have participated in it. That's over 300 injections. We have a formal process with Appalachia for referrals. We also have the only referral process by a private medical facility here in Leon County with your medical contract provider. We've recently met with medical staff at the Madison County who they contract with, and I understand that they're also the same provider in Jefferson. So we'll be working with them to make this available, because the best data that's out there right now for success is if you can engage them while they're incarcerated and getting ready to get out. And we said this to your staff here 7 years ago when we started the LIFT program. If we can get with people while they're getting ready to exit, work on that plan, substance abuse, education, it's the other pieces. Where am I gonna go live? It's the same issue that they're dealing with coming out of DOC. They're coming back, your reentry program's gonna deal with. Where are you gonna put these people? If we don't work on that aspect and helping them find employment, engage in some useful activity, then we're just, going around in circles. So there's a lot to be had. The other piece of the STR money I put out there is we tried to engage, and we still are trying to engage at the hospital level. We met with both TMH and Capital Regional. Capital Regional went as far as to, if they have a substance abuse provider, they're gonna put our information as part of the discharge summary. That's for a referral. We hired an ERN, and what we'd like to do is have case management staff on call. So if somebody in the ER suspects that somebody's coming in, they're abusing some type of, whether it's alcohol, opioids, meth, whatever, then we can engage them at the hospital level and try to work on getting them into services and treatment. Because the hospitals, dealing with the same, repeat offenders. And there are opioids, but, there are people still dealing with opioids. It's not the low level, the ones that are engaging in the crime that your law enforcement staff are dealing with, but there are people that are still having opioid addictions, and it's still out there.
You said something that I just can't get out of my mind. I know I'm not on the weeds of this, but you mentioned the genetic risk.
Yes.
Are there markers? And, do we actually know the genetic SNPs that are signatures for addiction risk?
I'm not familiar enough with the bioscience, and my pal here maybe. So
how convenient.
So the one piece in terms of finding the genetics, we can just follow it along in a family tree.
Right.
But the piece that has been mentioned, I think, is important just conceptually to tie back to your comment on the health and wellness. It's not an issue of prevention by teaching children at any age, 3rd grade or 12th grade, not to use drugs. That doesn't work. What the issue is what makes them predisposed to say, either my life is so horrible I need an escape, or I need the buzz, I need the high, I need the whatever it is that's going to turn on in terms of that brain. And what happens, and what we've really found in terms of the genetics over the last 5 to 10 years, is the concept of adverse childhood experiences, what we call ACE now, that we now screen for, that we're now doing much more in terms of training medical students and others, is what happens to a child, even prenatally, even when they're still in the womb, is what turns a gene off and on. It's not whether you got the gene, it's whether that gene is turned off or on. And it can happen after that child is born and they become a victim of abuse or a witness of abuse. If they are homeless, if they have food insecurity, if they have all of those issues, genes get turned on. And that's what makes the kid who may have been homeless between the ages of 3 and 7 seek out the cheapest alternative escape, which is meth, when they are 10 or 12 or 15. So the idea becomes one of prevention is how can we address health, wellness, recognition of these events, and early addressing of those. And that's what we're doing now is counseling the kid who witnessed the mom abusing the dad, because that may be the issue that keeps that kid from becoming a drug addict 10 years later.
I think to kind of go along on that point, one of the things that years ago was the psychologist working in the University Counseling Center. One of the things that we used to get were folks calling, kids calling was actually pretty funny. Kids would call to ask about the use of pretty significant drugs, psychedelics, like LSD, kind of say, my friend offered me some of this, do you think that I should take some of this? Right? What am I going to say? I'm a licensed psychologist, but one of the things I used to talk to these guys about, so I'd say, here's the thing that you got to be really positive about. You've got to be really positive that you've got a genetic history that does not include a predisposition for mental illness. And a lot of people are not sure about that. It's not something you guys talk about in families because the stigma about it is so high. But if you're not sure about that, and then you take one of these new alternate brain alternate substances that's powerful enough, that's the kind of thing you can set chain reactions in motion that you do not want to set in motion. So I think what Ernie's talking about is we can't control for the genetic disposition of folks, but we can control for, and should control for, whether or not that genetic predisposition gets activated. And some settings where it can get activated, and that's where all this kind of comes up.
I had not heard it put that way before.
True for mental illness, too. It's not just a substance use issue, it's just schizophrenia, it's mental illness.
Speaking and working with the sheriffs, I think where the bridge, and John, I agree, is getting back in the community. There's a breach between the sheriff, the jail. All these sheriffs would like to get them out of the correctional detention facility, particularly when they have substance abuse, mental health issues. They call me and talk to me about that regularly. Get them out of mine. Because they're difficult, and it's not what a detention or jail is set up for. But there's an particularly with meth, and that's why, and I think what you were talking about here is there an inpatient facility? Because if we had, big money, if you were to be able to build a regional facility that can handle inpatient mental health for non-paying, TMH does great, but they've all their beds, they've got 14 on emergency, and the average stay is 3 days. I think that a lot of these physicians would say, we'd like to be able to hold them for 30, 60, 6 months to transition before they're ready to be back into the community with that, but we literally don't have a facility, so I think that most of your...
This is all inmates.
You take the inmates who now, they've got involuntarily abstinent, hopefully, while they're in there. They're abstaining from the drugs while they're locked up. But they need some major intervention and treatment, like you said earlier, often the best would be inpatient treatment. But we don't have that bandwidth before they're coming back to being on the street, back into the community. That's where we need it, but most of them are probably, they have more than one issue. Most of them have both mental health and they're treating their substance abuse. So if we had a forensic facility that could treat mental illness and inpatient substance abuse, that I think would save all of these sheriffs. If they could get all of their mental health out of their facilities and get all of their addicts and stop having to pay those psychotropics, I mean, I don't know what, I think they would be very happy sheriffs, and you'd actually see some financial savings.
Can I jump in on that for a second? So I think just to get the wording precise, I think what you're talking about is a residential program.
Yes, sir.
When you start talking about inpatient programs, there's 100 reasons why that's not going to work so well, primarily because there's not that many ways to hold people inpatient. You're talking about holding somebody inpatient, you're talking about a vapor act or Marshman Act. They don't need vapor act or Marshman Act, but here we don't have the capacity to hold them against their will. You have the capacity to get a judicial order to some place like that. I don't think what you're talking about is acute hospitalization. I think you're talking about an intensive residential program. And I'll give you an example of this. So one of the things that we started doing about 10 years ago, as you know, was to do residential programs online that work with those who were coming out of Florida State Hospital's forensic beds. And we've been very successful in those programs. They only really just started opening up to diversion. They only really work one way, which is the state hospital's discharge to us. We hold on to folks for as long as the courts want us to, and we do it through a conditional release order that assigns them to our facility. And you can have different levels in there now, which you can't do is you can't say, you know what, I'm gonna lock the door and prevent you from leaving. What you can say is, if you leave, I'm calling law enforcement's gonna pick you up.
May I interrupt you there?
Yes, sir.
That's exactly what we're dealing with. They don't stay.
Right.
They get violated, then they're back in our jail. Okay? That's just how it works.
Well, here's my question.
I'm just telling you.
And we're not over on your side of the bed particularly. We've had that in Tanker's operation. We had that happen, I think, twice. So
We have a lot. Here's what's happened in my county. Well, we would say, you're looking at 3 years of incarceration in the state penal system. You got a drug problem. We would like to help you. And we all agree we would love to help everybody that we come across. Really straighten their life out, okay? We're not the bad guys wanting to see them in the lock up. It's about helping people first. And what happens is we'll do a trade-off. In lieu of going to prison, why don't you accept going to a rehab facility? 9, 10, 12 months, okay? Oh, yeah, who wouldn't trade that? Okay? So they go, but they don't stay, they get kicked out, they walk away, or they have somebody bring them drugs to the rehab center, and they have to leave. They're back on the street, violating the agreement, we put them back in jail, then we got them.
And then you're back in the same.
So it's
I see
just,
what you're talking
it's just
about.
over and over and over and over, it never gets better. Am I not correct, Sheriff?
And I think
Exactly right.
part of what happens is the facilities that you're talking about, and this is kind of where I'm going with the conversation.
If I may, let me finish this. I advocate, if there's a deal made, they go to drug rehab, it has a fence around it. That's part of the deal. You're gonna have to stay, just like you're in prison. You're gonna spend 12 months there instead of 3 over there in actual DOC. Now, what do you wanna do? But we don't have that mechanism in place that we can do that. That needs to be in place.
I think the place you can get that in place, it is a little bit back to what Sheriff Smith was talking about earlier. If there are drug rehab programs that are essentially part of the jail and part of the jail facility, and that's working with an accredited provider like a disability, I think that's the useful, as you're talking about. Somebody's getting discharged from jail, they're going into a treatment facility, apart from the fact that you made a deal in court. There's no interaction, right? There's no back and forth between the treatment facility and law enforcement. I think that's the problem, and that's the piece that on the mental health side we kind of fix when we really get it. But I think there's an opportunity to do that on the substance abuse side too. So I think that's what I get exactly what you're talking about. I think that's where
We just want things to get better. That's why we have this meeting.
So this idea that we've just described, so the last 12 months of your incarceration, whether that's in lieu of 3 years of incarceration or it's just the end of your time there, have an inmate, so that you're still in a DOC type of situation. You're in prison, but you're getting rehab and you're getting job training, you're getting life health and welfare sort of management. There is a sheriff, there's a couple of sheriffs actually in Congress. One of them's from Jackson.
Yeah.
And Rutherford is Sheriff Rutherford. And he has been advocating for this program, really trying to push this, along with another one you like, which is the SRO program. Fund the SROs federally. That's another subject. But I think it can help with the teaching in the schools too. But his program was, he said when he was sheriff over in Jacksonville, and somebody's one of his people from Jacksonville in prison, federal prison, someplace else, given to him for the last 12 months. So I'll just send him to my jail, because I know he's gonna end up in my town 12 months later. Send him 12 months ahead of time, and I'll work on it for 12 months. When he gets out of jail, he's gonna have a job, a place to live, and have been to drug treatment. And that was the program that he was trying to start federally. Now, he has a model for that, he understands that. And great guy, smart guy. You know, I've had a bunch of you know.
We know John.
I think that sounds like we could get that here. Is there anybody who doesn't think anybody who wants to give us input on that program before it actually gets to legislation? Great program.
The only thing I'd throw into that is that from the stuff I've seen back and forth, I think the key to that is to make sure that there's service providers involved.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go, developing those, because that's what they tend to, fall apart at the end, not from corrections or detention perspective, but from how do you staff it, from a political perspective, and how do you pay for this? Because if you pay for it all out of federal funds or GR, then that's not sustainable.
So John was doing it right out of his place. I mean, he literally did it out of the Jacksonville. No help from us. I mean, maybe there were some grants that he got.
I can look at the terror.
Well,
the idea.
Part of the issue with grants is, I mean, because there's grants that come out left and right, but we're not a Jacksonville, we're not a Miami, we're not a Tampa, we're not Orlando.
So you're gonna need some resources.
Where, they look at us like, they're just.
Well, it's not sustainable, right?
Right.
You get a grant for 3 years, you get a grant for 5 years.
Actually, what he's talking about, that John's doing, John's doing a reentry program. That's really what he's talking
Mhm.
about. That's all it really is. It's the reentry effort. And he has a component of that that comes from DOC. And DOC has already channeled dollars into that initiative. And so they have all that built into the system already. So it's not the same, it's really not as complicated as it might sound.
Yeah, it sounds complicated to me, but he makes a great case for it.
Oh, it works, no question about that.
But I believe it's absolutely essential at all avenues, from the early intervention, from the low level, and Jack knows that we advocate for, early intervention to get in front of the people that the first sign of something, so we can assess, make it some type of formal recommendation, involve them in some type of treatment service, to get them, so they don't have to get involved any deeper, all the way through your habitual, repeat offenders, your repeat substance abuse people. So there's lots of ways that that we intersect with different groups. Just on the good side of this, there is a 16-bed male residential program that we're getting ready to open up. Actually, it's 12 beds funded through the state, but we'll probably serve more than that. April 1st, right around the corner. To go along with our female residential program, and we have a mother's and the child program. We'll have the mother with their baby for a year.
My staff has been pushing me for the last 10 minutes, and we've got to leave. But let me, before we close, we wanted to have some takeaways. This is being recorded, and you all did talk about a number of takeaways that been recorded by both the news media and my staff. So, but what we're going to do is we will send each of you a link so that you can see this on video and recap what we talked about. In addition to that, we have a number of takeaways that we will then ourselves send back to each of you based on the conversation we had. And one of the things we did talk about, that's a request, if FDLE is willing, the drugs that are coming from Georgia, I believe it's important that we have a conversation with Georgia GBI.
I can tell you that we are. We have, we continue to. But we can have a further discussion, sure.
Yeah, I hope that they can, the limits, but that South Florida, or South Georgia area is killing us.
I'll talk to you offline in a minute.
Okay, all right. And Jack, you and I, is it better that we go as a group to the chief judge, or you think
I can certainly talk, we can do it as a group, or he and I talk pretty regular, so I can tell him that you're gonna be reaching out, and maybe figure out the scheduling of the next meeting and time.
Okay.
Happy to work with you.
Great.
Sheriff, before
Yes,
we
sir.
close out, I just want to make sure that everybody knows, we're still committed to providing resources to each of you. We have CIU units that are around the state, roughly 65 members, that we're able to bring up and do different details. Well, we have the 6 or 7 folks here that we've increased our interdiction unit locally just to help with this. So we're still very committed to assisting the Big Bend with this.
And we will send these, those takeaways to Congressman Dunn, so that all you guys talked about, money and grants and all of that, we'll push it all his way.
Put it on you.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
I appreciate you.